On today's Tuesday news, we've got all the Gladiator 2 story details that you need to see.
And Hellboy is back, not in POG form, but with a new film called The Crooked Man.
The Crooked Man. I just got distracted by the Crooked Man there. It freaked the hell out of me. So,
You're doing a little bit of a crooked
did
thing,
a bit of the
right?
crooked thing from the trailer. Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry, it's stuck in my mind, that image. So, we need to talk about the big, massive story that dropped yesterday. Gladiator 2, we got a first look at a lot of different things. We've got a first look at a lot of the characters within this story, this long-awaited story, and we got a lot of story details as well. So it's really fascinating. It was a great article through Vanity Fair. If you've not read it yet, after you finish watching this video, of course, go and check it out. We may miss a few things. It's a big, detailed thing, so just go and check it out. It's a great read. But Ewan, I think first and foremost, you just want to give us a bit of background information. If you're not kind of fully informed of where we are up to this point in the Gladiator story and how we got to Gladiator 2, Ewan's got you covered.
Yeah, so this is a movie that's been like 20 years in the making, and I'm sure all of us who have been around on the internet for long enough will have heard all the weird stories that were thrown up for Gladiator 2. Originally, it was meant to be getting made like back in the early 2000s, and then all sorts just basically led to the situation where, you know, Ridley Scott, the director, has not been able to make the follow-up to the original Russell Crowe starring movie until the last few years. Got greenlit properly in 2018, and then a whole bunch of production stuff happened afterwards. Stuff like the pandemic, stuff like the writers and actors strikes, and it finally started shooting last year and is coming to theaters in November this year, which is amazing to say. Obviously the cast looks absolutely incredible. Dude, the main thing that stuck out to me with all this is that initially I was not massively excited by the idea of doing a Gladiator sequel, but the production photos that we got, all the promo stills that we got in this Vanity Fair piece, everyone looks amazing. The production design looks brilliant. I think it's got like a $300 million budget or something wild. And it very much, I mean, there's only so much you can glean from production stills anyway, but everyone looks the part, especially Paul Mescal, Denzel Washington, which I'm super excited about. Completely forgot he was in this movie. And of course, Pedro Pascal, who, he's rocking that Centurion armor.
Yeah, everyone looks amazing. Like you're saying, anytime a studio wants to give Ridley Scott $300 million to just go and make a movie, I'm here for it, because you know it's just going to be epic. The scale is going to be ridiculous, and that's what, again, from stills that we've got, it looks like we're getting that kind of film. But we need to really look at, I think one of the big takeaways we got from this article is we learned a lot about the characters themselves. Obviously, we heard about the casting. We knew who was going to be playing certain roles. We even knew some of the names, but you didn't really know a lot of the background about these characters. But now we do. Now we have a lot of information coming into this film. It's kind of surprising how much information we've got. So brace yourselves, there's a lot. So first and foremost, Paul Mescal obviously is the big leading man of this film, and he's going to be playing Lucius, he was last seen in the first Gladiator, that character who's the son of Lucilla, who's played by Connie Nielsen. She's the noblewoman from that original movie. She's going to be returning in this film. So she's obviously going to have a massive part to play in this film. She's very much tied to Pedro Pascal's Acacius, I think it is. Acacius, I'm going to go for it.
I want to say Acacius. I feel like the Romans were really into their like solid kind of noises.
Okay, Acacius. That's what we're going to go. We Gollum again there. We go. So we've got Acacius, and it never leaves you. So yeah, Acacius, it's obviously very much connected, just based through this article. It seems that they're very much connected. I'll get to that when we get to that. But a big story detail that we got within this article is that Lucius was sent to the northern coast of Africa by Lucilla as a child. So he was sent there, and he was sent to a region called Numidia, and at that point that was just outside the reach of the Roman Empire. So he himself never understood why he'd done that, and why his mother had done that, and as he grew stronger, and like he got resentful of the fact that happened. He's just a very angry soul as a guy, and the movie picks up. It sounds like it picks up early on with Lucius having obviously a wife and child, and they live a relatively peaceful life in Numidia. But then
the Romans attack.
Yeah, then the Romans attack, and stuff hits the fan, and then you got I think Pedro Pascal's Acacius is the person leading that charge, that attack on Numidia. So that's a big old chaotic scene we're going to have there. So straight away, we've got these two characters butting heads.
Yeah, and Scott mentions in the report that, like, that's a really brutal scene. And obviously, if you saw Napoleon last year, and again, Ridley Scott never shies away from violence. It's one of the reasons why we love him as a filmmaker. Obviously, there's lots of other stuff too, and there's some stuff that he's talking about that he's drawing on from his own personal history that I want to talk about later on here because it sounds incredible. But yeah, I think they mentioned as well in the report that Acacius was actually, he served under Maximus before the events of the original Gladiator, so you had that connection coming through there.
But there's a slight difference with Acacius, though, isn't there? Because Acacius, even though he was trained under Maximus, and like you've got all that honor and all that, everything that comes with it, apparently Acacius, yeah, he does things his own way, really. I'm trying to find the actual quote for it. I've jumped in here and completely lost the quote, but he says that they made their trade in brutality, but while Crow's warrior was a master of control, Pascal's, and he said that his character is not somebody who's very good with control. He finds himself carried away by circumstance.
It's easy to get carried away when you're looting and plundering and invading.
Swinging your sword.
Who hasn't been there, you know? What if a few extra heads get lopped off? It's just Roman things. But yeah, so obviously that attack happens, and then Lucius gets taken back to Rome. But now with the obvious drama that brings with it, because he's getting pressed into the service of being a gladiator, and he sees Mother Dearest up there, and she's with Acacius. So there's a lot of really kind of classic mythological tragedy stuff going on here. Scott references the story of Romulus and Remus when he's talking about the two emperors in, I think, Geta and Caracalla, if you want to talk about them. The article mentions that their leadership is a harbinger of the end of centuries of Roman dominance in the ancient world. So we're very much getting into the decline and fall of the Roman Empire with this story, which was obviously being touched upon in the first movie too. But it looks like those vibes are being dialed up even more here with I'm gonna say Gita and Caracalla.
Yeah.
Probably. I'm gonna be kicking myself so much in the theater when it comes out. And I've gotten that wrong.
Saracalla, whatever it is. Yeah, no. Yeah. So he also mentions that they're damaged goods from birth. So that paints a picture right away. And then he references as well. I think he says that Lucilla's well-being they threaten Lucilla's well-being as a means of controlling Acacius. So it seems like, again, it's a lot of manipulating, a lot of typical kind of Roman Empire stuff, like people just using people for their own will, and it's that kind of deal. And then just leading into this as well, because we've got a lot of characters that seem quite, I don't know, dubious and untrustworthy. One of the key ones that we got, obviously, that you mentioned earlier, is Denzel Washington, obviously looking all dashing and all like badass.
Dude, he looks so cool.
He looks great. He's called Macrinus, I'm going to go with, or Macrinus. I'm going to go Macrinus. So he's called Macrinus. And the quote is, Denzel is an arms dealer who supplies food for the armies in Europe, supplies wine and oil, makes steel, makes spears, weapons, cannons, and catapults. So he's a very wealthy man. Instead of having a stable of racehorses, he has a stable of gladiators. He's beautiful. He drives a golden Ferrari. I got him a gold-plated chariot. And then after this, he was asked if Macrinus is good to his fighters or cruel. And Scott just said, to the guys who fight in the arena, I guess he's pretty effing cruel, right? So I like this guy.
This is probably obviously Paul Mescal, great actor. I'm really excited to see Pedro Pascal kind of breaking out of like the kind of, I don't know, like I know people really like The Last of Us and like some of his other recent projects, but for me this is like we're getting to see more of another side of Pascal that we haven't really seen in movies or TV for a while.
Instead of being reluctant father, it seems he's being reluctant stepfather.
Sad, mopey father who kills people. I'm glad we're getting away from that. Although I'm sure there'll probably be lots of sad mopiness in this thing too. But Denzel Washington's casting here is something that I completely forgot about, which is mad because I feel like if I'd heard about this the other year, I would have been obsessing over Gladiator 2 since that kind of broke. But he looks great here. I'm curious to see about like the alliances being formed between these characters. I'm kind of already thinking that Acacius and Mescal's character Lucius, I think they're probably going to join forces at some point. I feel like we're going to get a little bit of that going on. The Emperor characters sound fascinating too, but certainly, Denzel Washington, I'm always going to be really, really hyped when his name comes up in any project. Yeah, and you just feel like he's really going to get his chance to sink his teeth into something a little bit here, because just the description of that character just sounds so
I don't know, engaging, captivating, and it just feels like a role made for Denzel. So I'm excited about this, and obviously on top of that as well, I believe Mescal's put on a bit of size for this. Like he's obviously done a lot of training, but I think I've not actually got the quote here up, but I believe they were talking about how the idea behind getting themselves in shape for the film wasn't just to make themselves look like swimsuit models or anything like that. No, it was more, you start doing the training, you start just putting that size on, and it's more because you need it. You need to
walk differently and stuff.
Yeah.
You mentioned the psychology in the report, which I found, which is obviously super true. The more confident you are in your body, the more you're able to achieve. And if you've got to be in that arena dealing with a guy in Speedos and a big net and he's trying to kill you, you know, it'll probably help to be a bigger dude. And obviously, aside from the practicality of it, you know, you need the gladiators were personalities, right? They were celebrities back in their day. So all of that completely makes sense. You know, he's getting jacked to do a movie role, just the way the gladiators were getting jacked to do their own movie role that obviously just involved more literal applications of death
of
and
animals.
murder.
But I think Pascal as well said that he'd sooner jump out of a building than fight Mescal again because the guy is just a brick wall. Which
Dude's
awesome.
looking, I can totally see that. Yeah. Can I talk a little bit about the snippet that Scott had about the interesting thing here is that when this story, I always love it when directors kind of draw from their own and writers as well draw from their own personal life experiences when they're making something. And the thing that I found most fascinating about here, so I'm going to read you a bit of a quote here from the Vanity Fair article. Gladiator 2 means a lot to Ridley Scott because it is imprinted with some of his personal history. Born in 1937 in the northeast of England, he found himself thrust as a young boy into the land of an enemy he had come to despise during his childhood in World War II. Quote, I'm a war baby, so I was bombed every night and slept in an Anderson shelter. So did I like the idea of who the Germans were? I did not. And he goes on to discuss the role that his father played in World War II as a brigadier general with the Corps of Royal Engineers, and how post-war, under the Marshall Plan, when, you know, the governments of the United States and Western Europe are flooding money into West Germany to rebuild the nation that had been bombed during the war, he initially had some feelings of resentment until eventually, you know, he came to love being in Germany to the point that he really asked his father to stay there and continue doing his work, which didn't happen. And there's a kind of parallel that Scott has drawn here between his own post-war experience, wartime and post-war experiences, and the character of Lucius. It says here, quote, just as Lucius must decide if there is something to save in Rome, rather than just see it burn, Scott recalled seeing his father change from a destroyer to a builder in Germany. Even as a boy, Scott also sensed that change in himself. Now, this to me is just immediately, apart from just the aesthetics of this movie just being off the charts levels of cool, I'm so excited for this aspect of the story. I can't wait to see how this really unfurls in the film, and whether we're going to get a positive resolution overall, because as we all know, the Roman Empire came to an end. You know, some things that even if you try to save them, they cannot be saved. So I'm very curious to see where that goes in the overall, you know, grand scheme of things. It's so relevant to our current times. Now, do you try and escape the thing that is crumbling around you, or do you try and, you know, change it from within? There's lots of interesting stuff going on there.
I quite like that. I mean, you're not really going to have to do much to sell, like, Gladiator 2, Ridley Scott returning as director. You just not like that on the tin. You go, yeah, okay, that sounds good. But now just hearing that he's got this personal investment and connections to the character that Mescal is playing there, with just the parallels between his life and Lucius's, it just adds to you just think, oh my god, a Scott that's fully dialed in, like, personally with a character's arc and everything else. This is the recipe right now for something truly special. I hope that those aren't famous last words as the film comes out. It's a bit like, but I just looking at this coming into it, I'm so excited now. This article just gets you hyped. I think that's what it should say at the bottom. This will get you hyped. This article, I'm so ready. I'm plugged in.
Yeah, exactly. We should probably talk a little bit about Hellboy now as well, because obviously we got our first look at the Crooked Man yesterday. This is the third stab at adapting Mike Mignola's iconic Dark Horse character to the big screen. Obviously, we had the 2 movies from Guillermo del Toro in the early 2000s, both of which are really fondly remembered. I love both of them. The one in 2019, after the opening credits started, I looked to the people to the left and right of me in the cinema and went, oh no, and that movie turned out to be a bit of a disaster. The reactions that have come from the initial kind of Entertainment Weekly preview that came out yesterday, which included a trailer, as well as promotional images of Jack Kesey as the title character, has been kind of negative, and I totally understand why. I think if you're comparing this incarnation of the character in terms of makeup, you look at the desaturated palette compared to, the really vivid kind of gothic approach that Del Toro took with his movies, I can understand why people would be not too jazzed about this. But I do want to stake a little flag here in the defense of Hellboy the Crooked Man, which is being directed by Brian Taylor of, one half of the Crank directing team, who also directed Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, which is also a movie that I know a lot of people dislike, but I don't mind that much. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. The thing that people, I think, need to bear in mind with Hellboy the Crooked Man is that even though the Del Toro movies were great, the Neil Marshall one was obviously bad, we've not actually had a Hellboy live-action adaptation that has really tapped into the actual horrific roots of the character. There's plenty of horror in the Del Toro movies, but in terms of conveying that atmosphere of Mike Mignola's comics, that hasn't really been present. And watching the trailer yesterday, it really shined through for me, and that's probably because Mignola and Christopher Golden, 2 people really have a heavy hand in Hellboy's comics over the past 30 years, co-wrote the script.
I've not. I will hold my hands up. I've not read the comics. I'm purely through the films. That's just how I've been introduced to this character. And just from watching this trailer, straight away I was like, oh, I like where this is going. This feels like a horror film. This doesn't feel like as kind of superhero action, dark comic kind of thing. It doesn't. This feels like a straight folk horror movie. And I was like, I'm plugged in. I want to see Hellboy in this world. I want to see this paranormal investigation that really doesn't pull any punches, and it's just straight up creepy. I'm here. I'm here for this. I'm well locked in.
The best thing about Hellboy is kind of that versatility within genre spaces. Like, he can be an action hero, he can be a mythological hero, which the 2019 movie really bungled. It was an amazing storyline, the whole Arthurian thing and Nimue. It's an amazing arc in the comics that they just Deadpoolified for the big screen. But he can also be a folk. Like, he delves into folk horror and like local mythology and legend. And the Crooked Man here, the story is adapted from one of Mignola's own comics with art by Richard Corbin. And it came in the 10th volume of Hellboy, and it's set in early on in his career in the 1950s, where he's sent to Appalachia. And it involves, the Crooked Man character who, and there are some shots in this trailer that are literally pulled straight from the comics, which again is really interesting. I'm not saying that it's going to be good, but I think in terms of that, I think people need to maybe go in with an open mind and think, okay, well, you've had your older Hellboys. But this is actually kind of looking like an actual proper kind of, we're looking at the source and we're going to see how we can apply that to the big screen. So
it seems like risks are being taken somewhat, which I quite like. It's somebody having a bold vision for it and going, we're going to take a stab at this and then we'll see what happens, rather than just trying to redo what's already happened before.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I want to know what everyone thinks of Gladiator 2 and Hellboy the Crooked Man down in the comments below. Which casting are you most excited about? And will you be giving Hellboy a chance? Let us know down there. Drop a video a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to What Culture for more lovely newsy goodness every single day. I've been Ewan, this was Gareth, and we will catch you next time.